Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Giant Mess, show for Giants and Mets fans that appreciate comedy, movies, television, and life. And this episode is full of life, nothing but life. I'm your host, I'm a Giant Mess. My name is Neal Lynch. And on this episode, we're going to talk about our New York Mets, the historic run that this team has gone on to get themselves back into playoff position, one game out of the wild card spot, and within striking distance of the division lead. We'll talk about the Giants in their first preseason game against the New York Jets. Should we be carving out a bust for Daniel Jones to be placed in Canton, Ohio? We'll also talk about Glow Season 3. Yes, Glow Season 3. And The Boys Season 1. Haven't heard of it? Well, you should. It's pretty good stuff. And let's dive right into it. Let's talk TV first. The Sopranos. It's been a battle for me. We all know that. If you've seen the previous episodes, if you've listened to the previous episodes, you know that I've been kind of dangling off the side of the bandwagon for The Sopranos. I've heard so much hype over the years, 20 plus years of how this is the greatest show in TV history. And it's been tough for me to get on board. And then season 4 came along, and the first half of season 4 was kind of more the same. Tension was building, felt like things were bubbling over. And then this past week happened. And Ralphie got his comeuppance in a most brutal fashion. In the kitchen? Not the kitchen, Tony. The kitchen? Yeah, the kitchen, where the magic happens. I'm not good at sex, so the kitchen is where the magic happens. Tony refusing to let Paulie cap Ralphie, turning down everyone, ordering the hit, taking it back, playing a yo-yo game of cat and mouse, teasing us with our thirst for blood as we want Ralphie in the ground, 6 feet under. Of course, he won't be on the ground. He'll be at the bottom of a lake, a river, some body of water. And then finally, he finds out that Ralphie's behind the arson that took Pie Oh My's life. Oh, Pie Oh My. The horse that Tony fell in love with, Ralphie's horse, that eventually Tony kind of strong-armed his way in and made it his own. Got a friggin' painting made. Ended up banging Ralphie's girl. And that is what triggered him. Animals. That's Tony's weakness. Not humans, not people, but animals. So Ralphie bites the big one in a big way. And now Tony has to explain it. And so who does he call? He calls Christopher, who is permanently on heroin, just constantly shooting up in between his little toesies, in between his little piggies. And so Christopher kind of nods out, wakes up again, and he goes over and Tony confronts him about his drug use. Like, hey, man, I'm in a tough spot right here. I'm not going to say I did it, but I'm not going to say who did it. We're going to act like I didn't do it. You got to help me clean this up. And Christopher, of course, does his duty, but he's got his doubts. The wheels are turning. I mean, he's on drugs, so his mind is a mess. But at the same time, it's like 2 + 2. Here we go. And that's basically what this storyline has become. Christopher on heroin. He's out of control. He ends up shooting up, and he sits on the dog. Adrianna's dog. Kills the dog. Oh. And then he beats up Adrianna for the millionth time. And we get the intervention. And Christopher does not respond well. And the talk quickly devolves into physical violence in action. So it looks like Christopher is going to get his mind right, act right, hopefully. Probably not, because then what fun would that be? Would we tune in? Probably not. But I kind of fell off just when they had me, just when they were pulling me back in. They had me by the draws. They got me by the schlong. And they were just dragging me in. And I was like, all right, uncle, Uncle June, I give in. I'm back. And then Glow premiered. And then I finally checked out The Boys. And The Sopranos took a very, very back seat. Much like Tony took the back seat in that weird dream where Carmelo's in the driver's seat and you got Ralphie without the wig and the bug on his skull. And you got the revolving door of mistresses to his left. That was me. That was The Sopranos for me this past week. We'll start with Glow. I don't want to get too into it because there are rumors that it will not be back for season 4, which is unfortunate. I like the show. I've been hooked since day one, since the second the theme song kicked in and the opening credits rolled. And I'm a big fan of Alison Brie. Betty Gilpin's been in other things. This is the first I've seen of her with season 1. And I've just fell in love. I love the show. I know it's not really my demo. I'm not in the target demo. You watching, listening, probably not in the target demo, but give it a shot. Hey, you've run through some other shows. You got a little free time on your hands. This is an easy watch, folks. You will burn through seasons in a day. Each episode's around half an hour. You got gorgeous ladies of wrestling. I mean, it's right there in the name. How can you go wrong with that? And this was a good season. I mean, it was only 10 episodes. Kind of ended, felt like a mid-season finale, not really a season finale, but it did leave open a lot of doors that they can address in season 4 if they continue. I really hope they do. I don't know how far this show can go. I don't know that it's got a Orange is the New Black type run in it. I mean, Orange is the New Black probably should have ended after season 5. I'm pretty sure that's when we stopped watching. It might have been season 6, but this time around, they're in Vegas. That's how season 2 ended. They're headed to Vegas for a 3-month stint, and they're not televised, so they basically just run the same show over and over, night after night. Bash is now married to Rhonda, who's Britannica. That's her wrestler name, and you have that dynamic going on. It's was originally just a last-ditch resort effort to get Rhonda to stay in the country. It's a green card scam. But feelings emerge, as they always do. And Bash Howard, the producer, executive producer, who is one of my favorite characters on the show. I mean, he's just the lines coming out of this guy, pure gold. And he's kind of dealing with his own sexuality. I think he's bisexual. I don't think he's strictly homosexual. But it's the 80s. And that's a major theme of this season. Homosexuality, the AIDS epidemic, that's coming to the forefront. People are losing loved ones left and right. And it must have been scary. I mean, I was 5 when this show took place. The season actually opens with the Challenger explosion, which I thought was October 87. Don't know where I got that from. It was actually January 86. And what a way to open the show, folks, with Alison Brie as Zoya the Destroya, the Russian character who is, stereotypically communist, talking shit about the United States of America and the Challenger launch, just shitting all over it, talking trash. And, of course, the tragedy happens. And that's how they open the season. What a way to open it. From there, we start to see that Tammé, who plays the welfare queen, she's starting to have, she's a little bit on the older side. She's been through this. This is not her first rodeo. So she's addicted to wine and painkillers. And so her back is giving out. And that's kind of a running theme throughout the show. Like, what is her future going to look like? And then you have, of course, Zoya the Destroya is the wrestling name for Ruth, the actress that Alison Brie plays. And she has this kind of Sam and Diane type relationship with a character named Sam, who's played by Marc Maron, which is a relationship that I don't know that I'm on board with. I think it was kind of portrayed as a father-daughter type relationship in the first season. Now there's romantic feelings, and I think they kind of explored it, and they said, you know what, we're going to pull back. It doesn't feel right. But now back in season 3, we're back at it again. Sam says he's in love. with Ruth in the hot tub. And she's like, nah, I don't know. And then eventually later on in the season, she admits, yeah, right back at you, folks. Right back at you, friend. And of course, Sam drops the bomb on her that she didn't get the part she wanted in the movie that he's producing with his daughter. And she loses it. And I don't know that I want to see them together. I don't know that that really works out. He's on a path for destruction, even though he's trying to salvage himself and his life and his health. You know, he has the heart attack when he's in the office, the producer's office with his daughter. Doesn't even bother to tell his daughter. Daughter gives the keys to his car to his daughter. She drives off, and he just crumples and asks someone to get an ambulance. And you're like, dude, what are you doing? That really struck home for me because my father passed from a cardiac arrest, and it's like every second counts in those kind of instances. And it's like you'd rather die with your daughter. I know what he was trying to go for, and in the moment you're not thinking clearly, but God, you got to tell her, hey, having a heart attack, save my life. I want to live to see you make this movie. Instead he doesn't. And I mean, my wife, Cassie, was just screaming at the screen, just like, what are you doing, dude? So that was tough to watch. And then, of course, the doctor's like, hey, here are the changes you got to make. And he's like, yeah, I've been making those changes. He's like, all right, well, just stick to it. Don't drink, don't smoke. And he goes home and he celebrates with a drink. And you're like, what are you doing? Do you even really want to live to see your daughter make this move? Do you really want to live to try and have a relationship with Ruth? But I'm not really rooting or pulling for that relationship. I think they work better as good friends. I don't think they work as lovers. The Debbie storyline. Debbie Eagan, who is Liberty Belle in the show, played by Betty Gilpin, who I believe is nominated for an award. I think she's nominated for an Emmy. Could be wrong on that. Great job acting, but her storylines are kind of all over the place. Okay. They got this 3-month stint in Vegas. Now she's got a son, Randy, with her ex, Mark. She's commuting back and forth from Vegas to LA. It's taking a toll on her. She's missing big major events in Randy's life. His first steps, his first words, which, came very close together for some reason. And so when Sandy, the manager of the casino, I think, played by Gina Davis, who did an amazing job, says, hey, we're gonna extend you to for the rest of the year, she's not on board because she doesn't know if she can handle it. Bash, on the other hand, he's all in, and he doesn't understand why anyone else is not on board with it. He wants everyone else all in, and they're not, and that's when Bash turns heel. But we touch on Debbie's bulimia, eating disorder, after she does the workout with the showgirls, sees them as these statuesque, perfect figures, which, I mean, we're being honest here. Never been really into the showgirls, the dancers. Betty Gilpin's body, yeah. Okay? I mean, that's, she's almost a cartoon. I mean, she's Nicki Minaj on steroids. It's like, how do you get that figure? And then feel bad about yourself. That's what's so ridiculous about self-image and body image. But she ends up having a burger, some fries, and milkshake with Ruth. They have a little bonding moment. And then, of course, she goes back to her room and forces herself to throw up. And they never really address that in the rest of the show. There's a time jump. That was a big controversial part of the series. This time jump where they're at the 50th show. And then all of a sudden, we see this time lapse. It was cool visually with Ruth sitting, removing her makeup, and then everything, all this shit's going on in the background. And then we're at the 200th show. And you're like, what the hell just happened? And Debbie ends up like hooking up with and hanging out with this guy from Wyoming who's a media magnate, media mogul type guy, Ted Turner type guy. She calls him Tex, even though he's from Wyoming. He owns a bunch of TV stations, all kinds of media properties. So that's a little of a weird relationship. There's a big age gap there. She even acknowledges it in the time she's getting drinks with him, saying like, your sons who are 24, 25, I've been banging guys like that. the valets and the hotel personnel, which, you know, it was a very short scene, but that scene, pretty hot. Yeah, so if you're thinking, like, if you're a guy and you're like, I don't want to see a bunch of chicks in their drama, all right, but you're missing out on boobs. I guess that's the selling point for guys, boobs. You get to see Alison Brie's boobs, Betty Gilpin's boobs, a lot of hot sex scenes. So if you're not there for the drama, stick around for the sex. I don't know that we want to go in episode by episode. You know, Ruth has her issues with Russell, her boyfriend. The long distance thing is still playing you know, it's driving a divide between them, and she's trying to compensate for her affections and feelings for Sam by clinging to Russell and then pushing him away. They introduce this new character, Bobby, who like runs a drag show, and too much, Bobby. I'm sure people loved it because drag shows are so in. I'm not anti-drag show. Do what you love. Not going to knock it. Just too much of the guy. Just too much. There are plenty of other personalities and characters, and he's a magnetic guy, electric guy. You know, he draws attention. He knows how to stir a response, get a reaction. But you know, you have all these characters that are just hanging out. That big chick, Reggie. What's her deal? Dawn and Stacy that play the biddies, Edna and Ethel. They just kind of come in, say some homophobic shit, and then like fade into the distance. So, I mean, if we're going to rank episodes, really like the Freaky Tuesday episode 5, you know, and anytime this happens when you're in a Vegas residency or a show and you're just doing the same shit night after night, I can't imagine. I would lose it. But they found a way to get around it. They decided, hey, we're going to play each other's characters. And this is where you start to dive into the, you know, and it's funny. And they pulled it off. But there were, you know, I guess some problematic things that pop up, and you get claims of cultural appropriation. And so the show does it balances, it toes the line. It doesn't get too heavy and heady. It knows when to pull back and pull a joke, but it also explores some pretty serious topics without getting too preachy. And I think that's what I like so much about the show. Cons, you know, the Jenny Melrose conflict where, you know, Jenny is she's Chinese Cambodian, plays a character named Fortune Cookie, which, you know, yikes. And so, you know, she's understandably upset. She's doing the same racist shit night after night. And she wants to change. And it's understandable. And then to see her friend Melrose, who's Jewish, do a pretty over-the-top interpretation of her fortune cookie character, I think that really set her off. And the thing with that is, and no one wants to hear this from a straight white dude, I get it. But Jenny, and this doesn't serve the purposes of TV. So the writer part of my brain, the screenwriter part, the scriptwriter part says, I get it. I understand why you're drawing out this conflict. Maybe you need to fill time. Maybe you want to build attention. But it's really, and this is the foundation for a lot of conflict and tension in screenplays and scripts. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's like, this could be easily solved. But miscommunication. It's the basis of what drives people nuts, and it can either draw you in or it can push you away. And in this case, and with the case of Artie and Yolanda, their relationship, Beirut and Junk Chain, respectively, I think. You look at these two relationships. It's a friend and a friend, two best friends, and then the other one is two potential lovers. One girl who is firmly, I am gay, I am a lesbian, and the other one who's questioning her sexuality. I don't know. I kind of like being with you, but I don't know if this is like strictly you or maybe you and guys. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. And then the two best friends just talk it out like you're in the fucking desert. Outward Bound, episode 6. They're in the desert. Talk it out. You're on a rock. There's no one around. Your friend is coming to you and saying, hey, I need to figure this out. I don't want you mad at me. What can I do to rectify the situation? I don't understand it. Let's delve into it a little bit more. And instead, you're pushing that person away. You're walking away from them. You're ignoring them. You're just very critical of them. There are a lot of ignorant people out there. I'm ignorant as fuck. Just walk us through it. And I know sometimes it takes longer than you like, but if we get the context, 99% of the time, we're going to come around on it and we're going to understand it. So Jenny's Chinese Cambodian. She had to endure the Cambodian genocide, which, almost 2 million people died in a 4-year span, like almost a quarter of Cambodia's population. And she had to, her and her family had to go through that. But none of us knew. I didn't know. I don't, I'm not a history buff. And Melrose sure didn't know. She's Jewish descent, so she's talking about Seder and, being Jewish and what that means to her and who she's lost and how she deals with, the Holocaust and all that. Jenny's kind of just rolling her eyes, and it's like, you just share, connect. But while people have issue with that and take issue with it, that's what gives you the emotional release during that campfire scene in the desert. That is what gets the tears squirting and rolling out your eyeballs, is you finally find out, okay, this is what's bugging you. And I was, not a fan of how you were acting, but now I understand. The Yolanda Arti thing on the other side of the coin, I don't know. I felt for Arti the whole time. Yolanda was definitely the antagonist in that entire chain of events. You have a woman that is just trying to figure it out with you, looking to you for guidance, and you turn your back and your shoulder on her multiple times. And that sucked. And I still think Yolanda's in the wrong. And Artie's trying to, she's discovering herself. And by the end of this season, she's like, okay, yeah, I'm gay and I'm proud. And this is after the fire at the drag show club when, they were forced to evacuate and they come out and there's all these slurs all over the place. And she could have run and could have been like, you know what? I don't think I want to be part of this community because we're being hunted, we're being targeted, and I'm going to face a lot of scrutiny and it's going to be really bad. Instead, she's like, no, fuck that. Give me the rainbow colored headband. I'm going to wear it until the day I die. Now, that's one way to do it. The other way is Bash, who is closeted, ashamed of what, his longings, his desire for men. And it's mostly in part because of his ties, his family ties, the fact that he has Birdie, his mother, who is very, buttoned up conservative, like wearing the Barbara Bush type outfit. And he's worried that he's going to lose that. What does he do without money? He looks at himself as the bank, not even the bank. He needs the bank in order to survive. And people come for the money. So he needs the money and he needs that tie to his family. And so when his mother finds out he's married, he doesn't know how she's going to respond to Rhonda. Her and Rhonda go shopping. They bond. And then we find out, she's going to forego the waiting period for inheritance and give him the $40 million. So now he's got that money, a huge sum of money, that if he comes out and says to anyone, hey, I'm gay or I'm bi, it's a lot of money to kiss goodbye. So while RT, who doesn't have that, and is also, in a worse off position because she's A, a woman, and B, she's got brown skin, whereas Bash is white and a male. So it's like in the pecking order of things, she's, not higher up, and yet she is more willing to come out, and Bash wants to stay in his safe spot. And Bash turned heel. I mean, he definitely turned heel this season. And I'm not saying I didn't like him anymore. He was one of my most favorite characters coming into the season. Then he turns heel and you're like, okay, is this the real him? And then you find out, no, the guy's just scared. He's scared of what he's done, especially that threesome with Paul the Gigolo, who is somehow Melrose's boyfriend. I don't know how that works. And Rhonda, his wife. And he feels, and it was good. I mean, you know, I didn't think I would be into that, but it was all right. And now I'm looking around like, whoa, do I need to figure some stuff out? but it was hot. It was good. But yet the next day he wants the guy fired. It's like the guy doesn't even work there, Bash. So, I know a lot of people like the character arc for Sheila, the she-wolf. Yeah, okay. You know, that same kind of self-discovery character arc where it's like I'm holding on to this one way of life because it's felt safe and it feels right. And I don't want to open myself up or be vulnerable or express myself in this other way, you know. And she ends up ditching the she-wolf costume and has one of the bigger pops in the series when she shows up as Liza Minnelli at the wrestling event, the Freaky Tuesday event. And then when she has her monologue at the end at the charity ball. So yeah, I mean, that episode 9, the Libertines with the charity ball. I mean, that was like one of the better episodes. You know, Gina Davis steals the show and the showgirl outfit. I mean, holy shit. I think she's like in her 60s, maybe. Someone said 60, 63 and still be able to pull it off. That's impressive. I can't imagine what I'm going to look like when I'm 60. It's not going to be pretty. And then, you know, the finale was, I mean, I'm a sucker for Christmas type stuff. I mean, when Christmas rolls around, like the whole month of December and even that last week in November is just like, we need to find Christmas. We just watch Christmas movies, Christmas movie after Christmas movie after Christmas movie. It's all we do. So the finale being a Christmas special is like, okay. And I know a lot of people were upset with the lack of wrestling in this season. And that's a valid argument. The thing is, you know, they tried to like mix it up with the Freaky Tuesday and with the Christmas Carol special they put on. But like, you know, the Vegas residency, it's like, you don't mix it up. You don't mess with a good thing. If it's working for you and you're getting people and you're selling out, you don't want to fuck with it too much. The Christmas Carol one, people complaining like, oh, there's no wrestling. Can you imagine? And I actually had this thought go through my mind. Like if you bought tickets to a wrestling show and it was not advertised that there's going to be a Christmas Carol, I assume it wasn't advertised as a Christmas Carol. I mean, they were acting as if it weren't, but I can't imagine that flying. But if they didn't, like showing up, expecting wrestling and getting a Christmas Carol, I mean, like bizarre, but it worked. I don't know. For me, I mean, we didn't get to see the full show. We just saw snippets here and there, but it seemed like the crowd was enjoying it. But yeah, a lot of people were like, could you imagine going to see a wrestling event and they put on a show, the Christmas Carol? It's like, well, that kind of happened to me. We went down for Myrtle Beach. I went down to Myrtle Beach for Christmas and we went to, what's it called? A Pirate's Odyssey. It's kind of like medieval times, but with pirates. Okay. I've never seen this show before. I know what medieval times is. I get what they're going to do with the pirates. And they put on a full-on Christmas Carol show. And it's like, holy shit, worlds colliding. Like pirates doing Christmas Carol. It was weird, but it worked. And I think it worked here. They still had some wrestling incorporated. But, you know, hopefully there is season 4 because they did leave a lot of loose threads, a lot of open ends. It's like Debbie fought so hard to figure out her situation with her son, and she finally caves and brings him to Vegas, and then it's like we never see that fucker again. He had his little baby's day out moment where he's wandering around the casino getting in trouble. And then he's never seen again. And you assume, I guess she moved in with this guy Tex in his place in the Vegas area. And I guess the baby's there. Just be nice to let us know, hey, he's there and he's okay. And of course, I had my doubts about Tex. I was like, oh boy, is this just going to be Debbie being a gold digger and she's going to just latch on to this guy because he's got money and power? But he actually turned out to be a pretty cool dude until the very end when he's talking with her about the deal to buy the TV station in LA. And he's like, hey, thanks for coming to the dinners. You help make them less painful, but you're my girlfriend. Hopefully you'll be my wife. I don't want to see you. I don't want you to see me ugly. Which, that's what relationships are, aren't they? The good, the bad, and the ugly. So she feels, that was kind of a heel turn. And so that's when she took the deal to Bash, and Bash was drunk as fuck. That was an emotional scene. When he just starts crying and he's in her lap and Betty's lap or Debbie's lap. And he's like, I don't want to die. I was just like, if you can't relate to that shit, check your heartbeat. He's thinking about Florian, his butler that I assume he had a relationship with, who actually passed from AIDS. And he has that inner struggle, that inner conflict of like, there's this community that I don't want to identify with, but I'm innately tied to because of who I am and because of my sexual preferences. And I know I'm not supposed to be that, and I can't be that because of X, Y, and Z, but I have this tie to them, and I don't want to turn my back on them, even though on the surface, externally, I'm going to do whatever it takes to disassociate. I can't help myself. And he's scared. And even at the end when he's talking to Rhonda and he's like, hey, I love you. We're start a family. Go back to LA. All that stuff. It's the city. He blames Las Vegas. And he doesn't blame himself or anything else. He just blames Vegas. Which the most unrealistic thing about the show is the lack of cocaine. I don't think I saw any cocaine in this show. Maybe once. I don't know. But the fact that no one developed an addiction or anything, like Cherry Bang, she gets nabbed for owing the casino like $5,000. She's $5,000 in debt and somehow makes up that money mud wrestling, which I had my doubts at first, but then you realize that there are people who are gambling on these matches. And so that makes a lot more sense. That's why she didn't do turn. When you first see her in that disguise, that costume, you're like, she's a hooker now. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe not a hooker, stripper. And she's a mud wrestler. And then I like the direction they took there. It's just kind of hard to believe that she made $5,000 in a week. It's like, what are you doing? Are you making that with glow? May want to stick to mud wrestling full time. But according to the Hollywood Reporter, season 4 will be heavier on the wrestling, which it's funny that there are like, you go on Reddit and it's where I get most of the information that I'm reading off to you is Reddit. But like people are like thirsty. Got a thirst for wrestling. They want to see like a lot of wrestling in this show. And it's like, how much wrestling do you need? I admit there wasn't a lot this season, and there's going to be more next season. So that's good. But it's interesting to see, these people who are just like jonesing for wrestling. So that's Glow season 3. I get excited whenever a new season comes out, and season 4 will probably come out next summer, I assume. And, if Betty Gilpin wins the award, I think Alison Brie might have gotten nominated for an award. So if they keep getting nominated and winning, that's tough to cancel. I also read that Netflix only gives shows like a 1 month. 1 month. You got 1 month to impress us, or we'll cancel you. We'll pull the plug, which is insane. All right, let's talk about the show. It's a little more geared toward my demo. The Boys, which I'm not a big fan of the name, but it's a great show. I mean, TLDR, short version of this little review, just watch it. I had my reservations. I remember I first heard about it when I watched Rough and Rowdy 9. I guess The Boys was a sponsor. I keep seeing the TV spots, the promos, and for some reason they would air back to back to back. And it's like, you know, anytime that happens, you notice. You can tune it out the first time, but then the second time you're like, didn't I just watch this? And so the promos were like, I don't know. It just seems like some kooky superhero shit. And it's like, have we jumped the shark with superheroes? Is it too much? And finally, I was just like, all right, I'm by myself. I don't know if I need a break from the Sopranos. I'll watch Glow with the wife, but by myself. There's only one episode of Hard Knocks out. I watched it. What do I do now? The Boys. And I did not disappoint. It did not disappoint. Okay. If you're not familiar, I didn't know this. It's a comic book series, The Boys. No clue. But as I'm watching it, I get a lot of Watchmen vibes. So if I had to make like a quick tweet, like a one sentence like synopsis of the series, it's like The Watchmen, a modern day version, since I guess, you know, the movie came out in 85, an alternate version of 85. So this would be a more contemporary, more modern version of Watchmen, and funnier. It's dark comedy. It's black comedy, but it's funnier than Watchmen. And Watchmen had some of its absurdities. You know, it was willing to go where a lot of comics didn't, as far as TV and movies go. I don't know about, you know, I'm not a huge comic book guy. I've only read maybe one in my life, but most of the time, the movie and TV version of comic books for like DC and Marvel, they don't really dive into the nitty gritty stuff, the real life problems of these superheroes. The Boys does that, and it feels real. It doesn't feel fake in any way. But the official synopsis is it's an irreverent take on what happens when superheroes, who are as popular as celebrities, athletes, you know, influential as politicians, when they're revered as gods, when they abuse their superpowers rather than use them for good. It's the powerless against the super powerful. And so The Boys, which is the title, are a group of vigilantes that are seeking to kind of keep the superheroes in check and to bring them down when they are corrupted, you know, when they're doing foul shit. And of course, the superheroes are backed by a company called Vought, which the whole time, the first episode or two, maybe three, you're just trying to wrap your head around. You're like, this is familiar. This feels familiar. Oh, okay. Yeah, that is this. This is that. I get it. And Vought, I was trying to figure it out. Like, what? Okay, you could say Marvel, but Vought is this corporation that manages superheroes essentially and monetizes them through movies, TVs, books, you know, apparel, partnerships, promotional partnerships with other brands. And so right off the bat, you're like, okay, it's Marvel, DC Comics. But then I saw that they own a news network and it's Vought News, and it just sounded like Fox News. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like Fox in the way that Fox likes to dabble and dip its toe into the political sphere, and use outspoken personalities that are very popular to deliver their message. And so that's where I got the comparison there. Credit to me. Quick rundown of the cast of characters. There's the 7, which are, I guess you could consider them like 7 of the top superheroes in the world. They're kind of like the Justice League or the Avengers. You have A-Train, who is kind of like the Flash, although I compared him to, I think he kind of has the similar look as Anthony Mackie, who plays Falcon in the Avengers. He has like the same kind of goggles and look, but he also looks like the Atlanta Braves mascot, the Freeze. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google that shit. It's this guy who just wears like spandex and goggles and just he sprints from one foul pole to the other. And he gives like he challenges fans. So the fans come down and they get a head start. He gives them like halfway to go, and then he turns on the jets and he wins every time. It's fantastic to watch, mostly because when the guy flies past the fan always collapses and just is like in disbelief, falls down. But you know, I guess the more direct comparison is like the Flash or Quicksilver. You have Queen Maeve, who is kind of like Wonder Woman, meets Xena, warrior princess. She's a bit of an alcoholic. They don't lean too much into that on the show. Apparently in the comics, which I didn't read, she's more of a mess. In this show, she's kind of jaded. Like she's been there, done that. She's seen everything. She's been harassed. She's been through the ringer because she's the only female at that point. She's the only female in the all male 7. And so she's kind of represents the, I guess, the old school. I mean, she's not old, but old school woman who has kind of just put up with this locker room type atmosphere. You know, the good old boys club, which I thought the boys that was a reference to initially was like, all right, it's a boys club. Superheroes is a boys club because the men are more revered or, you know, have a bigger presence, bigger following, and no one takes the women seriously. The women are viewed as sex objects, and they're not. No one listens to them. No one cares what they have to say. And so she's kind of just put up with it because she wants to survive. It's a good living, and, you know, just grin and bear it is kind of her approach to everything. And you get Starlight come in. I don't have a direct comparison for Starlight. There were some comic book aficionados who compared her to the Dazzler and Dr. Light, 2 characters I've never heard of. I got a shrug on that one. But for me, the actress Erin Moriarty looks like a blonde Selena Gomez. And I compared her to kind of had when she was trying to vamp herself up and she was taking on this sexier look. She looked like Emma Frost, the character that January Jones played in X-Men First Class. That's kind of the look she had. But I would compare her to Captain Marvel a little bit. The modern day Captain Marvel played by, dear God, I cannot believe I forgot her name already. Very famous actress. She was in Room. That sucks. My memory sucks. Anyway, the modern day Captain Marvel that they've been rolling out. You know, in the first episode, she's, you know, gets a dream come true. She's now part of the 7, which she's been dreaming about since she was a girl. She gets to partner with and hang out with the Deep, who is the direct comparison for him would be Aquaman. Can talk to fish and other seafood. And so she's talking to him about like, wow, this is so great. Like I had a crush on you when I was a schoolgirl. And of course he pulls like a Louis C.K. Harvey Weinstein move and like drops trowel in front of her and is like, hey, do you want to be a part of the team? You're going to have to do this first. What are we going to do about this? Which, you know, hand up, I've used that line, but it was in a moment that made sense. Consensual. It was heading in that direction. No misreading on my part, but it's a great line when it's consensual and it looks, you know, everyone's on the same page. Great line. When you're a new coworker and you're just trying to like, you know, you're just trying to get to know each other on a professional level, not the line to go with. So the assumption there is that she did something. We're not sure if it's rape or oral or whatever, but she did something. So she thought he had this kind of high level power to get her in trouble and get her kicked off and sent back to Iowa, where she's from. And so most of her character arc, her storyline, and his storyline proceeds from that. You know, she's trying to come to terms with the fact that, you know, and the tagline says it. It's all in the tagline. Never meet your heroes. She meets her heroes and she finds out, God damn, these people are warped, deviants, pervs, sociopaths. And there's the argument to be made. It's like it's kind of a more realistic portrayal of people that are superhumans, people with superpowers. Think about people that have normal powers. I mean, not even like CEOs or anything like that. Just people that are management level, earning $70K a year, and the kind of flex that they have on people. So, you know, it's her rapidly advancing from naive, gullible, small town Midwestern gal who kind of trusts everyone and is blinded by her hopes to a person who becomes very strong, stands up for herself, and I guess empowered is the word that you could use. So yeah, I mean, she's a great character, I think. A-Train sucks. The Deep gets off on a bad foot. Gets off on the wrong webbed foot with the audience, at least. It's played by Chase Crawford, who's a dreamboat. Hot dude, so I guess that there's still people willing to overlook everything, the fact that he did this horrible shit because he's so good looking. I'm not one of those people, so he was automatically in the shit camp. But then over the course of the season, he gets what most people really think about Aquaman. All the jokes that Aquaman gets, he has to endure throughout the show. And you find out that he's going to a therapist, and like that's a funny scene because he's talking about his relationship with dolphins and how they're really hilarious when you get to know them. And it's like, you know, he goes to a supermarket and there's a lobster about to be murdered. And he's like, oh, don't worry, I got you, bro. He's like, picks out the lobster. He's like, I'll take that one home with me. And of course, dude sticks a knife right in the lobster's head. I mean, just, they did an amazing job. He became the comic relief, which is, you know, people take issue with that, but this is a show that's no holds barred. This is like, and apparently the comics are even more over the top. But this show, you know, when he's the comic relief and he got off on such a horrible foot. I mean, people were comparing him to Lannister. The Dragon Slayer from Game of Thrones, saying like, I mean, Lannister basically murdered a kid, pushed him out of a friggin' tower. And then he kind of came around towards the end and you started to feel for him and you were rooting for him towards the end. But yeah, that's kind of the journey that the Deep goes on. Much funnier than Lannister, as it turns out. But yeah, I mean, he's trying to save the dolphin, and he's saying like, you know, he's trying to be like, you know, just calm down. Like it was a one-time thing, and implying that he's kind of like, you know, had sex with the dolphin. Extremely dark comedy. Like he gets exiled to Sandusky, Ohio, which is fitting. Now Sandusky, Ohio, like you say that, and I think of Tommy Boy, the movie Tommy Boy, and like how Callahan Auto Parts was based out of Sandusky, Ohio, and how Tommy needed to save Callahan to save Sandusky, Ohio. Of course, it's taking on a different meaning now, and I've seen this in like message boards and, you know, chat, whatever forums, is like people see Sandusky now and they're like, oh, you know, the creeper Penn State coach who took advantage of boys. So you have that tie to it. But he gets banished there, and he ends up having done to him what he did to Starlight. He gets taken advantage of sexually a woman, a rando, forces herself on him and fingers his gills when he didn't want it. That, I mean, and there was a lot of weird, crazy, gory, just gratuitous scenery in this show from start to finish. Just like jaw-dropping, eye-popping, like, can't believe that happened, can't believe they showed that. And that, for me, might have been the most disturbing. It just, the sound effects, and it was just uncomfortable. And the special effects, I mean, were just off the charts amazing. I don't know that you can do any better than the special effects they had. It didn't feel like, you know how you see a promo for a sci-fi show, like the network Sci-Fi, SYFY, and you're like, oh man, I could probably get into that. And then you watch like you keep watching the promo or whatever. Maybe you tune in for the first 5 minutes and the special effects are dog shit. And you're like, I don't know. I can't. I don't know. Not the case here. I mean, like movie level quality special effects. You know, I've already given out a lot of spoilers, but spoiler, when A-Train, check the timestamps, by the way, people. If you haven't seen it, you got to know I'm going to be talking about details. Check the timestamps. Not that anyone is watching at 51 minutes into the show. Found that out. Thanks, analytics. But when A-Train runs over Robin, like runs through Robin, who is Huey's girlfriend. Now, Huey is played by Jack Quaid. He's Dennis Quaid's son. You probably saw him in the rom-com Plus One, which I also highly recommend if you're into romantic comedies, as I am. I know not many dudes are, but I like him. And he was good in it. He plays like just this average Joe type of guy that works in an electronics store, AV salesman, installation guy. He has a girlfriend, Robin. He's talking to her. She's kind of in the street. He's on the sidewalk, and A-Train just blows right through her. And that is the scene. This is in episode 1. This is the scene that got me hooked. When that happened, I was like, holy shit, this show just got interesting. The special effects, because when it first happens, you just see kind of like a whoosh, a breeze go by. There's hair, he closes his eyes and there's like wind blowing by him. And then you kind of look to your right and it's just like Robin is just, you just see teeth and like fragments of her skeleton and a whole mess of blood. Whoa. You know, I've never seen anything like that. And I was like, all right, you got me. I'm tuned in. I'm honed in. Let's do this. And then I couldn't stop watching from that point on. But A-Train, he kind of sucks, right? And it's unfortunate. I mean, the actor did a phenomenal job. I think he has to put on this persona, public, and they all do. All the superheroes, they have their public persona, shiny, happy, marketable, I guess, likable. But then they have their private persona, which is flawed, more human than human, if you will. And they never really get to dive into his backstory. You know, he's got this brother that trains him, and he's training for this race because he wants to stay on top as the world's fastest person alive. He faces this other superhero, and you find out later on they're making like a reality TV series with the Seven to show their origins, their backstory, their roots, to dive deeper into that. And he's on camera talking to the producer and he's answering the question like, so how did this all come about? And he's like, well, truth be told, I didn't live in a safe neighborhood. I lived in a rough neighborhood, and there were some guys with some guns and he's trying to tell the story about how gun violence affected his family, affected him growing up. And the producer was like, yeah, no, we don't hear that. No. Like, it's we really can't be attached to gun violence, which is crazy considering all the shit these superheroes really voluntarily put themselves through, but also like have to deal with on a daily basis. So you start to feel for A-Train. I mean, he sucks at the beginning. The first half, you're just like, this guy stinks. He has no regard for human life. Even his one appearance with the Make-A-Wish kid, which was hilarious, where like the kid has cancer and he's like, hey, what's going on? He's all happy and trying to act happy. And the kid's like, you weren't my wish, dude. Like, I wished for Translucent. Where's Translucent? Who is this guy that's kind of like Hollow Man meets Invisible Woman. He can only be invisible when he's naked, which comes into play. Puts a different spin on things when you hear the stories about him. But kid's like, yeah, I want Translucent. This is not my wish. I had one wish and I want Translucent, and now you're here. He's like, well, when you get through this, I'll teach you how to run. And the kid's like, you're going to teach me how to outrun cancer? I butchered the line, but you got it. Hilarious. And so you start to see that A-Train has this fear that he's about to be replaced for whatever reason. Not as marketable, not as likable as the other superheroes. He has to win this race to stay on top. And then we come to find out that he's taking this substance, performance-enhancing drug called Compound V. And then it all starts to get bigger and bolder and better from there. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about this show. I'm gushing. My living room is flooded. Okay. I'm wearing galoshes. Such a good show. The dialogue, the action. Carl Urban, who, trying to think of what people would know him from. He was in the Avengers. He was, one of the guys at Asgard. He had the two like awesome machine guns that he was firing off. Valkyrie? No, that was a chick. But he plays a guy named Billy Butcher, who may or may not be with the FBI or the CIA. He's with some kind of federal intelligence agency, maybe. But he's kind of the leader of the boys. And he's the one who's very anti-superhero. Anti-soups, as they're called. And he's just like, the stuff coming out of his mouth is just amazing. Just pure gold. I think he had the most one-liners in here, but he's also, he's on this warpath. He recruits Huey, played by Jack Quaid, to get revenge against A-Train. And meanwhile, Billy Butcher wants revenge on this character called Homelander, who, in my opinion, really drives the show. He's the character that is just, your eyes are on him and they're not going anywhere else. He just sucks you in. He is Zach Morris meets Jerry O'Connell meets Superman meets Captain America. This guy has it all. The looks, the charm. He's religious, but he's also very, very pro-American. And his name, Homelander, pretty much makes sense because very in line with his personality. You think Homelander, you think Homeland Security. Homeland Security is the department created right after the 9/11 attacks to protect us from terrorists. And yet, spoiler, it turns out Homelander is using the Compound V to create super terrorists to create the need for him and his squad, the Seven. The end of season 1. Okay, they're the mayor of Baltimore, which I thought this was cool how they delve into like the business aspect of things. Mayor of Baltimore, he said crime rate is way up. We don't have any superheroes. And so Madeline Stillwell from Vought, who's the VP of Hero Management, played by Elizabeth Shue, who did a phenomenal job. Just awesome job by her. Still looking great. Not that that has anything to do with anything. But she is trying to basically make a deal with the mayor of Baltimore to get them a superhero to bring the crime rate down so that this mayor can look like the hero in his own way and keep winning elections. As there's probably an election coming up. And so she makes an offer. He's like, no dice. And he makes a counter offer, and she's like, no way, we can't do anything for less than this. And he's like, well, I know about Compound B, which this is like the main driving point of contention for the most of the series is Compound B, which we think at first is just performance enhancing drugs that these superheroes are taking. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah, you got yourself a deal, Mayor. And then he's in his private jet with his son. Son's looking out the window, kind of sees something. It's raining, it's cloudy, it's foggy. Kind of sees something out the window and is like, what is that? And the mayor's like, yeah, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just a little turbulence. And of course, it's Homelander. And he's got the laser eyes and he just lasers the shit out of that private jet. Jet goes down, boom. And you're like, oh, okay. This is, whoa. What am I dealing with here? And the show's ability to mix humor with serious action, gore, heavy subjects. I mean, that's what kept me going. And you realize that Homelander is like the bizarro version of Superman and Captain America, and that Superman and Captain America dealt with these problems and these issues. Same type of stuff, but they took always the good route. They always went for good and not evil. It also poses the question. It's like, you know, you find out why Homelander is the way he is, and you begin to question why Superman didn't act differently, knowing that he came from another planet. And I think that was addressed a little bit in Batman versus Superman. Dawn of Justice was like, hey, and this might be the inspiration, not the inspiration for Homelander, but it can give you a better idea of Homelander and what to think about him is like Superman is an alien. And this is what Batman was saying in Batman versus Superman was like, hey, this is an alien who's a god, almost can't be killed. He has an unlimited amount of power. That power is going to corrupt him. And when he turns on us, who stops Superman? And that's what you got with Homelander is like, if Superman were corrupted and it was just like, I have all the powers in the world and you guys are ants, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. And that's what's basically happening. So I'm like in love with the show. It's already been renewed. I think it was renewed for season 2 before season one even premiered. Season 1 came out on like July 26th. So it took me a while to come around on it, but I can't say, I mean, it's just like start to finish. I don't think there was one bad episode. You know, sometimes in a season, it's like, what was the point of that episode? What was the point of that storyline? Or what was the point of that? What was the point of that? Everything connected. Everything had a purpose or a porpoise, if you're the deep. And the ending. So you find out that Huey ends up dating Starlight. He ends up getting in her good graces because he doesn't really know that she's a superhero and he's just treating her like a normal person. And they end up connecting and going on dates and hooking up. And of course, Billy the Butcher is basically not coercing or forcing Huey, but basically directing and ordering Huey to get closer to Starlight so they can get more information and they can figure out what's going on. And it's through their interactions that Huey's able to find out, or that Billy Butcher is able to find out that Compound V is being pumped into babies, select babies who are born normal humans, but they get pumped with this Compound V substance, and that's what gives them these superhero abilities. So superheroes are not born superheroes. They're actually humans pumped with the Compound V, which is fraudulent, major big time conspiracy level stuff, probably the worst in American history, because they've been Vought has been lying to the public and saying that these superheroes were created by God or naturally, and they're not. And so Billy the Butcher finds that out with another character named Mother's Milk, who I need to find more about. I mean, he seems like a cool dude. He had a couple cool one-liners, but it's like the whole like, oh, I'm kind of pussy whipped by my wife. I have a normal home life, even though I work at a place for delinquents. Supposedly in the comics, his home life is a lot messier. And so maybe we'll get more of that in season 2. But so they stumble upon the Compound V, and we find out this whole big kind of conspiracy unravels. Homelander using the Compound V to create super terrorists, which creates the demand for superheroes to be given more access, more privilege, more power. Because right now they're held in check a little bit. Kind of like touches upon the subjects and topics of Avengers, or what was a result of Avengers Age of Ultron, where it's like people are like, we got to get these superheroes in check. Like they're destroying cities, tons of collateral damage. We need to put some kind of regulations, restrictions on these people, because if we don't, they're just going to run roughshod over the entire world. And us humans, normal humans, are going to suffer as a result. Which also kind of ties into, I guess, the backlash from like Man of Steel and movies like that, where you're seeing epic destruction, tons of destruction, and kind of caused by these superheroes, which, it's collateral damage. But at the same time, it's like, someone has to be accountable for this. We can't just say, oh, good job, thanks for saving us, been destroying half our city. And so I think that's what The Boys tackles, is like, there is a lot of red tape and paperwork and bureaucracy, people fighting over different things. It's not just as simple as like, thanks for saving us. It's going to be like, you need to be held accountable. And that was the major driver for like Madeline Stillwell and Homelander, is like, we're trying to get this contract passed through it's got to go through Congress, but we want to get this contract that essentially makes us like one of the top providers for national security and defense, which they end up landing the contract thanks to that brutal scene on the plane, dude. Oh, that plane sequence. I needed a moment after that. It took me a while to recoup. That was tough to watch. There's a plane hijacking. It's in international waters. So Homelander figures with Madeline Stillwell's backing, like, I can go in there, I can save the day, and then we can show the rest of the world that we're okay and that we're needed. And so they go in, Homelander and Queen Maeve try to save the plane, and it goes amok. It runs afoul. Doesn't go according to plan. They take out the terrorists, but they also take out the controls of the plane. And they figure out, okay, there's no way we're going to save this, so we're just going to bounce. And Queen Maeve is like, whoa, okay. I don't know if I'm on board with that. There's a lot of innocent people in this plane. We need to do something. And Homelander's like, dude, yeah, there's nothing I can do, really. So, oh, well. And then, as the show progresses, you see Homelander's like, you see why he is the way he is. Eventually, he starts to track down the truth. The reality TV series that A-Train was a part of, Homelander's a part of, they go to his home where his family lived, where he grew up. It's not really his home, not where his family grew up. He grew up in a lab. He was alone. He didn't have a mother and a father, and that's why he attaches to Madeline Stillwell, because he sees her as like a mother figure. There's a very Oedipus type vibe going on there. Like, be my mommy, but also want to like do ya. He's got a little bit of a mommy fetish. Like to see his Pornhub history. So yeah, I mean, they're not able to save the plane, which I heard in the comics. That team, it was all 7 of the 7 superheroes, and it's 9/11. and they're trying to save this one plane. I guess the government takes out the other two planes, but they're trying to save the one plane that's, about to crash on the towers, and they completely fuck that up, and it crashes in the Brooklyn Bridge, and they made it worse. But in this version, in the TV version, they aren't able to save the plane, and Homelander is able to use that as a rallying cry and say, like, he gives a very impassioned speech about how we're needed more than ever and blah, blah, blah. And so that's when they're able to land the contract. But he goes on his own little mission to find the truth, because Billy the Butcher his main goal is to get Homelander. And that's because he believes that Homelander raped his wife and then his wife disappeared. She either killed herself or was killed by Homelander, who wanted to cover it up. So that's what he's got in his noggin. Homelander finds out that Billy the Butcher is after him and is like, he had a wife, didn't he? Oh, yeah. Like, I had sex with her. That's when you find out. And he's like, what happened to her? Like, we had sex. And then she just disappeared. And then he starts questioning, asking around. And Homelander finds out she originally, this guy, Dr. Vogelbaum, who apparently was in charge of the testing, and because Homelander was one of the first babies to be given Compound V, and they raised him in a lab, and he tells Homelander, she became pregnant, but the pregnancy went a lot quicker than we all expected. It wasn't the normal 9 months. It was, a matter of days. And the baby tried to claw its way out. The mother died during birth. And of course, the baby drowned in the mother's blood. It was like, holy, that is a lot to digest right there. And then Homelander's like, okay, I guess I can buy that. But the best sequence, or the best exchange, is when Homelander's like, I'm the greatest. He's like, the Dr. Vogelbaum is explaining, like, hey, we fucked up. We made mistakes, and we know now that we should have put you with a family. And I can imagine what it's like to not live with a mom or dad or blah, blah. And of course, Homelander's kind of in denial mode. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm the world's greatest superhero. And Dr. Vogelbaum goes, no, you're my greatest failure. It's like, oh boy. Yikes. And so I think Homelander is pretty pissed at Madeline Stillwell. He has this obsession with her. And someone put it really eloquently on Reddit. It was like, Homelander is not the jealous boyfriend. You often see him staring at the wall because he's got the X-ray vision, like Superman. So he's looking through the wall at Madeline Stillwell, and he's trying to eavesdrop because he has the super hearing when he focuses. And so he's trying to hear what she's talking about, because he's not the jealous boyfriend, even though it looks that way. He's actually the jealous child. When you see him interact with her, he kind of acts like a child. And he's constantly talking about that baby, because she has a baby. And he's like, oh, and this happens with kids. You have the first kid, and that's the center of your attention. That's your world. That's the sun. And then you have the second kid, and there's not as much attention for the first kid. So the first kid gets jealous. And so that's kind of like who Homelander is in this whole dynamic. And so he becomes furious with Madeline Stillwell. Billy Butcher able to get to Stillwell, kidnap her, hook her up to C4, threaten to blow her up, which Butcher, I guess his position as the protagonist early on, but he does some really fucked up shit. Shooting Starlight in the park when she's trying to take Hugh in and arrest him because of what he's done. And he just opens fire with a sniper rifle in the middle of the park in broad daylight and takes her down with 2 shots. And it's like, did he just murder Starlight? Like, is he that anti-superhero that he's willing to just like kill one in the middle of the day? And he also, Mesmerizer, by the way, great cameo by Haley Joel Osment. Oh man, perfect casting. Did an amazing job. And when he takes out Mesmer in the bathroom and just collapses that dude's face on the sink, what? Very reminiscent of the home invasion scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when Brad Pitt just takes that chick's face and just like mashes it. And you're like, ooh, shivers, shiver me timbers. But yeah, Butcher's no saint. And it's understandable to a certain degree, because it's like you lost the love of your life. You have no idea what happened to her. You're assuming the worst, even though, you know, you get angry at anyone who says that she's dead, even though you, in your back of your head, you're like, she's probably dead. So he gets Stillwell, holds her hostage, hooks her up to C4, and is about to blow her up. And Homelander comes in, and he comes in with the baby. And they're talking, and you're like, what is about to go down? And the one thing that Homelander wanted Stillwell to do, he wanted that level of trust. He didn't want to be lied to. And you find out that Stillwell lied to him because she was trying to protect him. And she's scared. Even though leading up to this whole series, it looked as if she was the one in power. She was the one who had control over him. She was really ultimately scared of who he was and what he was capable of. And he, I guess, exacerbates that fear by lasering her right in the eyeballs. Oh, man. That was a spectacle. And, of course, Billy the Butcher is watching this like, oh, Billy Butcher is watching this like, okay, awesome. And of course, Homelander turns and it's like, what the fuck are you going to do now, motherfucker? I just took out your bargaining chip. And this is where Billy Butcher's like, you know, the psycho switch flips and he just blows everything to smithereens, baby included. And you're like, oh, wow, this show, just when you got your finger on the pulse, they just like completely flip the script. But the real plot twist ending, and which is why the show, for me, top 5, top 3 of the year, maybe higher. Just a revelation, as the critics would say. You figure, all right, Butcher's toast. Homelander probably survived. And cut to, fade in. Butcher's lying on his back on the lawn. You're like, oh, it's probably like a dream sequence. Or, I don't know, WTF, what the hell just happened? And Homelander comes into perspective. From Butcher's perspective, looking up, Homelander comes into frame. And he's like, hey, how you doing, buddy? And you find out that they're on the lawn of a house, different house. Out walks this kid, blonde kid, who looks kind of like Homelander. And out walks Becca, Billy Butcher's wife. I mean, chills, dude. All up and down my bod. And Butcher's just like, total disbelief. Like, thought you were dead. What's going on? Am I dreaming? Am I hallucinating? Can't believe this. And you find out she had the baby. She didn't die during childbirth. The baby didn't die. The baby's now 9 years old. And Homelander's like, hey, you know, I'm not just Homelander. I'm your dad. And that's it. I mean, whoa, dude. So, yeah, I mean, there's a shit ton more I could talk about, but I've already wasted so much time. Don't look at like that, like a waste of time. You know, there were some good moments there. If you haven't seen it and you decide to watch this, more power to you. You don't want to pay for Prime. I get it. You probably wanted to pay for Prime after I did that. You're like, ugh, that is not worth saving $75. I also watched, moving on, I also watched Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling. It was a special on Netflix. I was a big Rocko's Modern Life fan when it was on Nickelodeon. Can't believe it's been 20 years, 2 decades since that went off the air. And they got very meta with it. And I was very impressed with their ability to how they handled that 20-year gap. You know, it was like the characters were dealing with it as well. Like it's almost like they had awakened from a coma and now they're trying to catch up to the times. And I thought they did a fantastic job. So I if you're an animation fan, if you're a Rocko's fan, check it out on Netflix. I thought they, tremendous job. Moving on to movies. Disney is rebooting Home Alone for their streaming service, Disney Plus, I guess. It's like, just leave it alone, dude. Unless you actually do get Macaulay Culkin, like, to be involved in a major way, not just some bullshit 2-second cameo. Maybe then it's worth it, but I just leave it alone. The original is so good. There's like a Home Alone 4. That's unnecessary. Who the fuck watched that? Revenge of the Nerds came out 35 years ago. I might end up doing a blog post about that. That kind of, I believe that was kind of like the first inkling it was the first of its kind type of thing, first of its movement where nerds were cool, I guess you could say. And now it's like nerds rule the world. Nerds run the world, I guess you could say. All right, so that's enough of that. Fucking 81 minutes. Stupid. All right, this week in Mets history. Let's talk about the Mets. Let's go, Mets go. The white-hot New York Mets. We're going to start with history. I'm not a history buff, but I do like looking back from time to time. I get nostalgic, especially when it comes to my Mets and Giants. August 10th, 2004. Now, this was weird. I began reading this, and I was like, oh, I know who this is about, and I made a left turn real quick. While taking a cab to Shea from LaGuardia, Tommy Glavine was injured as the taxi collides with an SUV. He was my age right now, 38-year-old, lost his 2 front teeth and needed 40 stitches to close facial lacerations. Dear God. And if you're a Mets fan, when you're originally, watching that, reading that, taking it in, you're thinking of Duaner Sanchez, right? I believe Duaner was the one. Was it K-Rod or Duaner? One of those two motherfuckers was in a taxi accident and essentially ruined the season because I think they had to bring in some other dickweed to close games. And it might have been during the 2007, 2008 collapse. Maybe it was 2006, but it was like, maybe it was 2009. It was during a season when we had a shot. We were in contention, and then that accident happened. And of course the pitcher was out for a while. And then when he came back, wasn't the same. And so Mets, it hurts. August 11, 2005. I remember watching this in real time. And I was 24 at the time, but I became a man. I was a late bloomer. Carlos Beltran and Mike Cameron, the collision heard around the world. Full speed running, and they just dove into each other. Full speed. I guess at the time Cameron was in center, Beltran was in right. And Cameron had a broken nose, multiple fractures in his cheekbones, had to undergo facial surgery, and Beltran had a concussion. That was like, okay, we can't, you two are no longer allowed to play in the same outfield. So that was the beginning of the end for Mike Cameron, who for some reason I was really high on. I was like really into at the time. I was high on Mike Cameron. I don't know why, but I was like, why do we need Beltran? We have Mike Cameron. What an awful, awful take. I also read an article saying that the Mets had initially passed on Marcus Stroman in the 2012 draft, mostly because of his height, which was a major source of debate. He's 5'7", which I knew he was small, but 5'7" is small. It's below average, technically, for talking techniques. Scientifically, he's just he's not average height. They ended up taking Gavin Cecchini. Cecchini? Is that how you pronounce it? Do you want to talk about my love for prospects or my contempt for prospects? Gavin Cecchini is a reason is like he was talked about so fucking much over the first 3-4 years in our system, and he came up and he didn't do shit. I think people still talk about him. I don't even know what he's up to right now, but like for every prospect you're high on that does well, there's a prospect that you're high on that doesn't do well. Almost feels like a coin flip sometimes. I don't know. But let's get to the real meat and potatoes of the Mets section of this show. And that's the historic run that we're on. I think we're 15-1 in our last 16, something like that. I mean, feels good. Of course, I'm always cautious. We've been bit in the past. We've been hot in the past. I don't know that we've been this hot for this long, though. This is probably our longest stretch of success in a very long time. Of course, they take the game. They take the series from the Marlins. They sweep them. And people are like, all right. So you won against shitty teams. You're able to win against bad teams. It doesn't mean anything. You're not a contender. You just beat up on bad teams. And it's like, well, if you're going to make a run at this thing, you have to win when you're expected to win. You know, they got swept by the Marlins and everyone was canceling them earlier in the season. Shut out in 1 run. I mean, and people were like, you know what, just sell the farm at that point. And I was probably one of those people. And they were like, the real test, and that was all you heard, and I probably said it too, the real test is this week when we play the Nats and the Braves. And what do? We almost swept the goddamn Nationals, who I believe they own the first wild card spot. Dramatic fashion on Friday night. I mean, that Friday night game, I couldn't sleep. I was jacked up. I could have ran an ultra marathon. Felt like I was on Compound V. One of the best games. One of the best come from behind wins in Mets history. Down 6-3. And was this the game that Stroman pitched? Might have been. That might have been the game that Stroman pitched, which Stroman has not. I mean, we talked about how they passed over him in the draft in 2012. And, you know, people are very happy about the energy he brings to the clubhouse, positivity. All that's great. And I hope he continues to function at that level. But goddamn, man, give us just a little bit better outing. Just a little bit. I think he struck out 9. But you got to give us more than 5 or 4 innings. You know, we need 6 or 7. So another kind of, you know, mixed, you know, he didn't have a play of the week like he did last outing. But again, I think he's like, let me see if I can find the stat line here. 10 innings pitched, 10 1/3, 16 hits, 7 earned runs, 1 homer, 5 walks, 12 Ks, 6.10 ERA. I mean, that's not what we signed up for. I mean, you can do better with Vargas. You know what I mean? But the come from behind win, I don't know. I mean, Captain Hindsight over here, you know, looking back, acting like I knew. But Doolittle has a very checkered past when it comes to the Mets. Every other team, he's fine. But with the Mets, he just loses it. He can't figure us out. So when we're down 6-3, 2 on for Todd Frazier, I'm thinking, you know, Todd has been counted down and out so many times this year. People want to give up on him so many times. I mean, I was even saying, you know, it was like a foregone conclusion that he was going to get traded. And he comes up with one of the most clutch home runs in Mets history. 3-run blast to tie it. I was watching my iPad on mute because we were engaged in something else. Maybe Glow, maybe The Sopranos. I can't remember. I mean, that's the life you live when you're with someone who's not a sports fan. You got to sacrifice. It's all about sacrifice in relationships, but ties it up. And then Conforto comes up, and Conforto has just been out of his mind. You know, we said that he was hot I mean, the stat line before that game was the Mets were 0-44, in which they trailed after 8 innings. I mean, that's like, that's like Washington Generals versus Harlem Globetrotters type level of losing. 0-44. But there was something about the energy, the fact that the stadium was packed and the fans were up and vocal, and that had a lot. That had to have something to do with it. And I think Frazier fed off of that. I think Conforto fed off of that. And I thought it affected Doolittle, Dr. Doolittle. Here's a stat that Ravel tweeted. Home teams went down at least 3 going to the bottom of the 9th, won 5 of 507 games this season. It's according to ESPN stats. And the odds of the Mets winning in that spot went down 6-3 in the bottom of the 9th, less than 1%. I mean, if you can't get on board with this team after that, after Conforto lines a shot over the right fielder and scores, was it Lagares or Panic, one of the two? And he gets his shirt ripped off. I mean, shirts off, walk off. That's something special. And then to do it again in the next game. Just phenomenal stuff. Just, and I'm squeaking. I'm like out of breath. I'm so excited. Because that next game, it was like I was even more sure of it. I was like, 1%. Yeah, got it. We've gone from the second worst record in the National League to a tie for the second wildcard spot in 4 weeks. That's how bananas the fucking baseball season is. And how long it is. 162 games. Spanning April, May, June, July, August, September. 6 months. Half a friggin' year. A lot of stuff happens in 6 months. I had a job 6 months ago. Making good money. And was assured of a position. Full-time, salary, benefits. And now this. Mets own the best record in Major League Baseball since the All-Star break at 18-6. Have given up a Major League best average of 3 runs per game over that span. I mean, yeah, you can't say much more about the starting pitching. Stroman aside, Wheeler's giving you a chance to win. I know DeGrom had a really shitty outing on Sunday, but Thor's fighting through trouble, getting out of trouble. I don't think, him and DeGrom, it's like when the bases are loaded, you almost figure we're going to get out of this. There's not going to be much damage, if any damage. And Mats is all over the place, but the Mets starting pitchers are putting them in a good position to win. And Seth Lugo continues to be lights out. And the fact that he finished, what was it? The game on, is it Friday or Saturday? One of the 2 games, he goes the 8th and the 9th inning. He was already at like 20 plus pitches when he stayed in for the 9th, and you're like, oh, what is going on with Edwin Diaz? I mean, that's a major statement for Diaz. It's like, hey, we really want to win. We'd love for you to get over this hump that you're, this little snafu, this little ripple. But we really want to win this game. It's too important for us for you to fuck it up. So we'd rather have Lugo go. Sunday's games. But Louis Guillaume with the big knock. I mean, if you were in doubt after Friday's win, you're like, it's a fluke. The crowd was into it, whatever. Louis Guillaume, who I called in my blog post about Joe Panic, because the team signed Joe Panic and they designated Hechavarria for assignment, which I did not see coming. I didn't think that was going to happen, but I forgot that Hetchy was due like a roster bonus of $1 million if he hit a certain date. So I guess, in a money saving move, yet again, they decided to designate Hetchy, even though Hechavarria was playing way better offensively, at least, than Guillaume. Every time I see Guillaume's name, I just think of Guillotine. I'm just going to call him Guillotine. I called Guillotine an abomination to the art of hitting. That's pretty savage. And I don't normally say that word, but yeah, it was I really went all in on Guillotine. And he showed me up big time. He gets the game tying home run. And then Jonathan Davis, JD, comes through with the sac fly to win the game on Saturday. So it's Guillaume's first ever home run. He couldn't have asked for a better time to go than then. If you weren't a believer, Saturday, Guillotine's like, hey, check this out. Put this on for size. And now you have people talking. Like, okay, Mets are for real. And then Sunday they come out and lay a duck. Partially, it's twofold. Alonso comes up with that play, makes the throw. We don't have 2 runs score when they shouldn't. 3 runs, 2 runs. It looked like on the play, DeGrom kind of stutter stepped or like he hesitated. If he just ran through the bag, I believe the throw's right there. So you can only pin so much on Alonso. I mean, he could have made a better throw. DeGrom probably could have made a better play. Of course, the team scratches back and gets within gets within. I mean, if it's 5-4 going into the bottom of the ninth, I think the Mets tie it, possibly win it. But of course, Diaz gets his chance. We're down 5-4, and it's like, here, Edwin, here's your opportunity. Odds are, stats show, blah, blah, we'll probably lose, but keep us within striking distance. Give us a fighter's chance. And of course, he gives up, was it a 2-run bomb? I mean, I forget where I saw this. It was on Twitter, but it was some kind of graph that was just showing how they're basically showing in the plainest terms, simplest terms, he's not executing his pitches, which means like the catcher sets up and is like, throw the ball here, please. And Diaz is like, nah, I'm going to go over here. And his slider has been trash. If he had any kind of control over his slider, any kind of mastery over his slider, it's a whole different ball game, but he doesn't. He lacks control and he's not hitting his spots. And this is what happens. But can you imagine if he does? Because you saw Jeurys Familia pitch a hell of an 8th inning. On Sunday, one of the games, he looked like old school 2015 Familia. Not World Series Familia. Talking regular season, lights out Familia. Shut her down. Tie it up. Put a bow on it. That kind of Familia. So if he is back to that level, and we got Lugo, who apparently has like a tear in his ligament in his elbow and is still pitching phenomenally. Outrageous. His wife is one of the most positive people I've ever seen on Twitter, by the way. It's like, I mean, very motivational. I almost want to do something about it. But, I'm lazy as fuck. So you got Familia, Lugo, firing on all cylinders. If you can just get Diaz back to some shadow of himself, just a fraction of where he used to be, I don't know how you can bet against this team. I mean, they're winning despite him, in spite of him. Now, the Braves series, not to fall back into that typical rhetoric, But like, this is the major test. I'm recording this on Tuesday. So they got the Braves tonight, Braves tomorrow, Braves on Thursday. 3 games set. It's in Atlanta. And we'll see. And and you know, we've always been talking about the wild card. August 12th, 1969. Mets woke up 8 games back in the NL East standings. We all know what happened there. They went on a fucking tear. 39-11, something like that, down the stretch. Ended up taking the division. The Cubbies collapsed. August 12th, 2019. Mets wake up 8 games back in the NL East standings. I mean, you know, it's hard not to get excited about that. It's hard not to jump out of your skin thinking about how we could replicate that. We've already won 8 series in the second half, which equals our first half total. So it feels like we're getting over the first half jitters. We're getting that confidence now. If you can take 2 of 3 from the Braves, personally, for me, it's like, I think we can do it. But even if you just don't get swept. If you can take 1 out of 3 and you're threatening to win the other 2, you come close, but fall short for whatever reason. That's not, you know, that disastrous. I think you got to look at that as a moral victory. I know people are like, no such thing, but on their home turf, you know, they're the second best team in the National League behind the Dodgers. So, you know, we gave the Dodgers a run for their money in LA. So, dude. And it's a lot of this is because of Jonathan Davis, and because of Michael Conforto. Davis has an OPS of 1.186 at home. It's the 3rd highest home OPS, which that is on-base percentage plus slugging percentage. He's the 3rd highest home OPS of any player with at least 100 plate appearances behind Charlie Blackmon and Christian the Ass Eater Yelich. As for Conforto, he's already one of the best players in franchise history. It's time to value him as such. That was a tweet that went out, and it was accompanied with this stat. He is now the 3rd Met with at least 100 home runs through age 26, behind Darryl Strawberry and David Wright. Now, I mean, like, Straw had 186 by age 26, and Wright had 140, and Conforto has 100. You know, but you know, the people love to stand for Conforto, and it's hard not to when he's running around the field without a shirt after winning the game. Zach Wheeler, he's given up 3 runs or less in 6 of his last 7 starts dating back to June 27th. I mean, when you give up 3 runs or less from your starting pitching with this offense, that should be a win. Conforto, 8 home runs, 19 RBIs since the All-Star game. His home run pace is around 33, which that's nothing to sneeze at. And of course, when the team signed Joe Panik, they had designated Hetchy, but they also had to put Brandon Nimmo on the 60-day IL. And they said that he was supposed to begin a rehab assignment like this week, but I don't know. I've said it from day one, like, bulging disc in the neck, that's no joke. Like, he's probably done for the season, if I had to guess. I mean, you look at Wright and his spinal stenosis, he pretty much never bounced back from it. He had that brief run in the playoffs in 2015 that was huge. He was able to kind of give us a bump in 2016, but then ultimately, it's your neck, dude. It's your spine. Any kind of like damage to that, and you're c'est la vie. Team also brought in Panik's been serviceable. He's getting on base. I think he started the rally on maybe Friday night. scored on Saturday. So he's getting on base and he's scoring. And that's all you can ask for. You just don't want an automatic out. He made a great play at second, diving to his left. Play that I don't think you're going to see from, definitely not from Cano, probably not from Hetchy or Guillotine. And the fact that he's a Mets fan is just like, I love how they're just bringing in Mets fans. Like Stroh saw Johans no, the Panic, you know, his brother's a big Mets fan. He grew up watching the Mets. And then this guy, Brad Brach, I don't even know how to say his last name, from Baltimore. They pick him up. And the beauty of this guy is like he's great. He's a right-hander and he's going to be great against right-hand hitting. So they have the left-handed specialist and Louis Avalon, who comes in against lefties. And then they have Brach against the right-handers. It's just these little moves. And I pointed this out, I think, in last week's show, that it's reminiscent of the 2015 series of moves that they made. The one big splash with Yo in 2015, Stroh in 2019, but then they made these little moves here and there to give them just fill in little needs here and there that don't really pop out to you on paper, but in the moment they're huge. I have to apologize to Wilson Ramos. I wrote him off big time. I was like, I was totally for trading him. I thought he was a bust, and he's come up big in a lot of big situations. No more of this, like, I'm just going to hit it through the hole on the right side of the field, which seemed like that was his signature play moving forward. He's been hitting dongs lately, which is great. One more comment on Jonathan Davis. So this is more relevant to last week, although he's continued to do well. From July 8th to August 6th, the Mets playoff odds have increased by 35 points. Huge. And Davis has hit 385 in 77 plate appearances. And his WRC plus, I didn't even bother to look this up, but it's the 7th highest in baseball. I mean, you know, read into the numbers what you will. Stats are for losers, but like the guy is ripping the ball to the point where, like, Saturday night they walk Alonso to get Davis, and you're like, what are you doing, dude? Yeah, Alonso can mash, but he's kind of been spotty lately. Davis is literally engulfed in flames. And of course, he hits the sac fly, but he could have done a lot better. Mets are 19-5 over the last 24. Zach Wheeler, 1.33 ERA in 20 and a third. Noah Syndergaard, 1.78 ERA and 35 and a third. 9 home runs by Conforto, which we mentioned. 2.35 starter ERA, 2.91 bullpen ERA, largely due to the fact that they have been using Avalon versus the lefties, and Lugo has just been amazing. And to a certain extent, I guess Justin Wilson has been playing to where he can. Ahmad Rosario batting .348. I mean, Lugo's stats were crazy until he gave up that home run. And Juan Soto, talk about a Mets killer. That guy has not done anything wrong, I don't think. I haven't really looked into his background, but he needs to be canceled. I can't have, and he's young. He's like 20 or something like that. So I can't have another friggin' 20 years of this guy ruining my life. But I mean, you know, it's feeling right. Just feels right. 3 games set against the Braves, and then you get the Royals in Kansas City, which I don't believe Kansas City poses a threat. I know that we haven't done that well on the road, but you got to think that they're going to take at least 2 out of 3 there. And then they got the Indians at home. So at least it's at home, but Cleveland is hot as fuck. But Key is stay healthy, make the right moves, and just pray to the powers that be that Diaz is touched by an angel or something. Maybe he has a Christmas Carol moment. You know, that's a callback to Glow. People are like, why are they doing this Christmas Carol episode for the finale? You got to remember Ruth, who plays Zoya, who plays Scrooge in the Christmas Carol musical for Glow, she's going through what Scrooge is going through. She's at a crossroads. She's kind of just going through life. She needs a wake-up call. She needs direction, purpose, meaning, significance. So that's what the whole Christmas Carol point was Ruth is Scrooge. I think Edwin Diaz is Scrooge. He's got to have a wake-up call. He's got to be visited by 3 ghosts. He's got to see that Grim Reaper and be like, I don't want to die, dude. I got a lot of stuff that I need to do before I meet my maker. And one of them is helping the Mets win a goddamn World Series. All right, so that's it for Mets talk. Let's talk Giants. We're in the final home stretch of the show. Cool, 2 hours in. Let's talk that preseason game. It's the first preseason game against the Jets. The Giants are the home team. Oh boy, we have got ourselves a cornerback controversy. QB controversy, for sure. Definitely. It's happening. And, you know, the organization will deny it up and down. Mara says that he wants to see Eli on the field. Doesn't want to see Daniel Jones on the field. Shermer's in full denial mode. Fine. That's cool. Truth is, you got a controversy. Jones has looked impressive in camp. He comes out and goes 5 for 5 with 67 yards and a touchdown. And he was making throws that Eli has not made in a long time. Eli comes out with the starting unit. We only expected him for 1 series, but a lot of us didn't expect him at all. He goes 3 and out. Roll out. He had a guy open, supposedly down the field, and he checks down to a tight end for a 3-yard gain. Yeah, it's 1 play. It's the first preseason game. Who gives a shit? But it's optics, dude. Perception. Perception is you've lost it. You don't have the confidence. You know, you have this off-season strength training regimen for your arm. We're all hyped about that. Al Leiter's on board. He's hooking you up. You got the Al Leiter mojo going for you. Your arm looks strong according to everyone who's watched you making throws that you haven't been able to make past couple of years. Unleash the beast, dude. That's not what fans wanted to see. Yeah, it's a preseason game. It doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck? But, show off the arm 1 time in the preseason and you squash all this Daniel Jones talk. And yeah, I'm sure it doesn't affect Eli. Not much does. He'll just brush it off like he normally does. But someone tweeted out, my big concern with Eli isn't that he can't make all the throws. It's that he may not be willing to make all the throws. And whether that's him being shell-shocked from years with no O-line or doubts about his own ability, he no longer slings it like he once did. He needs to get that back. And that's just facts. Hashtag facts. That's the truth. You did all this off-season stuff to strengthen your arm. Show it off, my man. Come on now. If you got the goods, give it to us. It just takes 1 throw. It really does. I mean, you're not Daniel Jones. You're not the rookie that has to show us a lot. You've got a lot of great archive material. We just want to see a new track on the album that lets us know that you're not willing to ride off into the sunset just yet. You got a little bit more in you. And the fans booed, and I don't blame them. And the broadcasters were losing it like, I can't believe they're booing. It's like, I can. Dude, we've been seeing this shit for fucking 4 years. Do not start the game with a fucking 3 and out. That's not a lot to ask for. Get 1 first down. We'll be fine with it. Just don't go 3 and out. Apologize for yelling. I just get super fired up. I mean, you watch Daniel Jones, and I understand it's not against the first team Jets, but the fact that, okay, it's only one series. Fine, I get it. They had the weather delay. Maybe if they didn't have the weather delay, we could see him play a second series, and maybe he doesn't do well in the second series. Well, we didn't see that. All we saw was one series, and it was a good series. Why was it good? Yeah, sure, the touchdown. But it was the way he was throwing the ball, the way he's staying in the pocket, and the way he's fitting the ball in very tight windows. The Giants receivers on his 5 completions averaged just 1.4 yards separation. It's like around 3-ish feet. You know? If you're watching the video, I'm trying to show you that not a lot of space. And I guarantee if you had someone go through the archives of video for the past 4 seasons, Eli, when he gets that kind of separation, he's not throwing the ball, or he's throwing it away, or he's checking down. And that's the difference. It was, I mean, the overreaction in preseason, I mean, I overreacted. So it's like, I can't criticize it that much, but like people joking about how like he's getting, you know, his bust is about to be carved. He's on his way to Canton, Daniel Jones. And it's like, he looked really good. It's hard to argue with getting that, you know, why are we excited? Well, we had fucking Davis Webb, who was supposed to be the next Eli Manning, just fucking airball throw after throw after throw in the goddamn preseason. And you're like, this is the guy that we're passing the torch to? And then Kyle Lauletta, you know, he's supposed to be like this underrated, like Chad Pennington-esque type guy who's just supremely accurate, even though he doesn't have a ton of arm strength. It's like, okay, well, I can envision him in one scenario being like this underrated guy who comes from a small school who just puts the ball where it needs to be. And he goes like 5 for 20 against the fucking Redskins in a game that was a blowout. No pressure. So yeah, we're gonna get a little excited. Guy was putting the ball pinpoint accuracy. He was not laying guys out, putting them in jeopardy, putting them in danger. I found this. This comes from Reddit. I think someone clipped an excerpt from the New York Times profile on Daniel Jones. And this is a pretty good story. And it feels, I mean, the comparisons of him to Eli are just, he is Eli's clone. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The Giants, someone was just like, we just clipped a little snippet of Eli's hair and they cloned him. Because, I mean, this story reeks of Eli Manning. And it's about Daniel Jones. About a week after the Giants drafted Daniel, 6th overall, he and his 2 sisters went out for ice cream in Charlotte, North Carolina, where they're from, while scooping Jones' cookie dough, which at least he's getting cookie dough, dude. At least he's not just getting vanilla. That'd be like so playing to stereotype if he got vanilla, which, you know, people like French vanilla. Go fuck yourself. I like it. But cookie dough, definitely. You can't, hard to pass on cookie dough. It's probably this story is probably why I made chocolate chip cookies on Saturday night. Made them way too big, by the way. It's just like a gag of horse. Anyway, while scooping Jones' cookie dough, the man behind the counter glanced at a TV showing highlights of Zion Williamson. And he remarked that he hoped the Knicks would draft Williamson, which they didn't. And Jones asked whether the man rooted for any other New York sports teams, like, I don't know, the Giants. And the guy replies, "Don't even get me started on this draft pick. Daniel Jones at 6? Are you kidding me?" And without hesitating, Jones replied, "Yeah, man, that's crazy. Can't believe they did that." And of course, his sister stood there dumbfounded. But, Jones often played the even-tempered mediator among the four competitive siblings, but she couldn't understand how he could let the stranger insult him. And Jones said, it wasn't important enough for me to assert myself. I mean, it's so Eli, it hurts, I don't have that in me. I would have lost my shit. I'd have been like, yo, you're looking at him, dude. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I'm going to come back here and shove the cookie dough up your ass after I lead this team to the Super Bowl. But that's the difference between me and him. And that's probably why I'm taking prostate medicine right now and not in a Giants uniform. So, it's 1 week. It was one series, a lot of overreaction. On the other hand, a lot of people, myself included, would have not hated picking Dwayne Haskins at 6. Dwayne Haskins threw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. So there were throws where he looked awesome. It looks like he's a starter. And there are throws where it's like, have you ever played football before? I can't get mad at him for throwing the pick on the wheel route because I've done that. And looking back at the game tape is not great. I'll put that out there. Alex Tanney and Kyle Lauletta, they also played well. I mean, people kind of just talked about Daniel Jones, but now there's after the was it Sudfeld for the Eagles went down for the season. I guess they don't have a backup now. Is that right, Philly fans? And so maybe the Eagles are considering trading for Alex Tanney or Kyle Lauletta. I hope they give him Kyle Lauletta. Don't give him Tanney because I have a weird feeling about Tanney. I hope this never comes to fruition, but I have a weird feeling that he's just going to in a weird sequence of events, like Jones has temporary plague and Eli is off doing emergency charity work and they're down to Tanney and he just comes in and is just trick shotting all over the place. He's a trick shot quarterback. I'm pretty sure that's the guy. There are videos of him on YouTube just throwing trick shots, the football. And I would just love to see that in a regular season game. Tanney's got highlight type stuff in his back pocket. Let's put that out there. If you can put a bet on it, do it. Oh boy. On the other side of the ball. Well, I guess we can talk about TJ Jones first. Is TJ Jones a sneaky low-key great acquisition? I want to say he led all receivers. I think he had 6 catches, 70 yards or something like that. I think he led the team in receptions, and he looked really good. He had a touchdown catch. I think that he's gonna surprise a lot of people. He's not gonna do any kind of Pro Bowl type shit, but he's gonna come in and play better than anyone else that could fill his shoes. I think it's a sneaky good pickup. Saquon didn't play. Neither did Evan Ingram. Russell Shepard, that was a fantastic play, catching it over the middle and taking it to the house. He's people forget, with OBJ out last year, Russell Shepard, and I guess to a certain extent, Fowler and Latimer stepped up. I don't know. I keep hearing things about Cody Latimer, he's establishing a bond with Eli and they're on the same page and blah, blah. And it's I don't know, typical preseason. Is it typical preseason bullshit or is it is this for real? I think the organization and the press is definitely pushing for him to have some kind of comeback redemption story after he might not have played up to his potential in Denver. And then, of course, he got injured last year. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm pulling for him. But so far, it looks like Russell Shepard and even TJ Jones might have a bigger impact. On the defensive side of the ball, oh, by the way, Paul Perkins. Oh, boy. Paul Perk. My man Perk. Not a great first game. Fumbled, got hit from behind, which that's tough. But I guess if you have the ball in the right, if you have the right ball position, ball security, that doesn't happen. He kind of had his elbow out and not tucked. And so the guy came from behind and dislodged, separated him from the ball. So that stinks. But then you drop the pass, and all around, not a great game. And, you know, with 4 running backs in camp, Barkley, Gallman, and then you got Rod Smith, who looked great last year against the Giants. I don't know. Can't afford to have those kind of mistakes. Meanwhile, on the defensive side of the ball, BJ Goodson, not good, dude. Got his first snaps of the game in the start of the third quarter with the third string team, third unit. I mean, going from, you know, I don't think a lot of people were that high on him, but it was like, oh, we drafted a linebacker and he's a thumper. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going to get back to physical kind of football. He's going to lay some lumber on some people. I mean, when you're playing with the third team, that is not good news. I think Tay Davis started and then Ryan Connolly played, and Ryan Connolly had a good game. So if those two continue to play well with the first and second units, I don't know. I think you got to say, BJ, it's been real. Jake Carlock, guy from was that Long Island University? Just put him on the team. Find a spot. I feel for these guys that make big plays or have great games that come out of nowhere in the preseason. Like that guy from the Browns who talked his way in onto the team. He was just sleeping outside of a gym or something like that and talked his way onto the team, and then he returns a kickoff or a punt for a touchdown. It's just put him on the team. Find a way to keep him on the roster. Same with Jake Carlock. Makes a hell of a play. Goes up, gets the ball, and returns it for a touchdown. Local kid. I don't know. Find a way to keep him on the team, especially if he play at least keep him through all of preseason. Say, okay, maybe the first game is a fluke. Let's see how you do with this unit, and keep, pushing him and testing him. And if he keeps responding, fucking A, man. My feeling is you can't cut him after a game like that. And then, of course, the bad news that could have been a lot worse. DeAndre Baker injured his knee, sprained his knee. Didn't tear his ACL, which is great, but knee sprains are tricky. I don't know how long he's going to be out for a knee sprain. I don't know. But my guess is that he'll probably sit for the rest of the preseason. But that gives an excellent opportunity to Corey Ballantyne, who played well and had a pick, but he also had another pick overturned to pass interference. He had a lot of hands, a lot of grabbing. And in the old NFL, where elite top talent cornerbacks could do that and did that and got away with it, too many cameras now. We're in an age where we're in the first season of being able to review pass interference, and that's ultimately going to hurt Corey Ballantyne. But he's showing that doesn't seem to be showing any long-term bad side effects from getting shot. And looks like he has a chance to get a lot of playing time. I was not that impressed with Julian Love. Maybe it's just because he gave up that touchdown to Elijah McGuire in the first drive, which, by the way, Jabril Peppers. Yay. Jabril Peppers. If he comes up with that pick on that first drive, we're saying a lot of good things about the defense. We're not saying that they let Sam Darnold drive down the field and complete third downs, and ultimately, I don't know what happened to Love on that touchdown. It's not. I don't think he got caught up in the wash. He just got beat. I mean, they're still high on Julian Love, but I didn't see a whole lot to make me think that is deserving of all the praise. But on the positive side, ESPN ranked the Giants ranked them fifth for under 25 talent. So we got Jabril Peppers, Dexter Lawrence, Oshani Jimenez, Will Hernandez, Lorenzo Carter, DeAndre Baker, Sam Beal, Darius Slayton, Evan Engram. Cowboys were ranked 11th, Redskins 13th, Eagles 32nd, dead last motherfucker. Which I think that's good. It's a young team. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of maybe mental mistakes that come from a lack of experience, but you're setting yourself up for a nice 3 to 4 year run at some point with that group. Of course, Sam Beal, it's like if he can ever just get healthy, he's been kind of frustrating because you just keep hearing about him and how much potential he has to change the game. And it's like, actually play a game first before we start flating you. Third of the Giants' 90-man roster is under age 25. 17-ish are locks to be on the 53-man roster. But only 8 of the Giants' 29 players under 25 have taken a snap in the NFL. Yeah, it's a lot of rookies. But the one rookie that I think, besides Daniel Jones, the rookie that might have the biggest impact is Dexter Lawrence. I mean, this guy the more I hear about him, the more I fall in love with this guy. He's rooming with Daniel Jones to help Daniel keep his mind straight. Daniel's mind straight. And here's a quote from Dexter. I knew when I played him in college, he was really good. In the first half, he was killing us on the field, up and down the field, but they just couldn't score. I knew his talent when they drafted him. I said, okay, he deserves to be there. I respect that. All right. Under the radar rookies to keep an eye on during the preseason. Julian Love and Oshani Jimenez. Here's the write-up on Love. Criminally underdrafted, there was not a bigger ball hawk in the 2019 draft class than Love. Over the last 2 college seasons, he came away tied for most pass breakups plus interceptions, and his overall grade ranked 6th among FBS cornerbacks. And he was coverage grade. He ranked 4th, and forced incompletions ranked 2nd. In man coverage, he collected the most forced incompletions, put up the 2nd highest coverage grade in college football. He's the best corner in the nation while playing cover 1, and his coverage grade was the best in college football. Single-handedly shut down any offense trying to utilize a quick passing game. So he's elite on short targets. And of course, Ox is one of the best edge defenders in all of college football over the last few years. He's nearly unmatched at the 6'7" technique in that time span. His pass rush grade is second only to Nick Bosa, and he was 3rd in total pressures. They got rid of Olivier Vernon's salary. They got what could be called an Olivier Vernon clone or upgrade, and Julian Love, who is great in man, which, with Janoris playing man on the other side, you're not going to have a lot of options to throw to. If they can get the scheme down, they're all rookies. So, my guess is that, you're going to see you might see a lot of broken coverages, while they get their sea legs, while they get their feet underneath them. But year 2, 2020, look out. I guess I'll end with this. Alec Ogletree changed his number from 52 to 47. When asked why he would change his number, he said, because I felt like I had done all I could do with the number 52 in biblical terms. Oh boy. The number 7 means I'm a completion. That was my number in high school, and I threw a lot of incompletions. Oh, no, that's not right. I threw a lot of completions to the other team. Number 4, I read it, means your mind, your body, your spirit are in line with the structural world again, and for me, in organized sports. It means stability of home, Number 47 reminded me of where I come from, what I've been through, and where I'm headed. He said he didn't really have a meaning behind the number 52, and this gives him meaning. Okay. So, yeah, there's that. But one Redditor pointed out that Ogletree made a deal with Shermer last year that if he had 5 interceptions, he would get to line up as a tight end for at least a play. And you can't wear number 52 as a tight end, but number 47 is an eligible number for a tight end. So be on the lookout for that. If there's a bet you can put down, like a prop bet, Alec Ogletree catches a touchdown, lay some moolah on that. So yeah. A nice, cool 2-hour, 16-minute show. Be sure to give me a call on the hotline, the Luxury Box hotline, 862-BIT-1986. Facebook.com/Giant Mess. Real Cinch on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And let me know what you're thinking. Well, I'm going to try and dice up the video a little bit this week. There's going to be videos this week, I think, because no one's sitting watching my fucking fat face for 2 hours. All right, everyone, that's it. That's all I got. Adios, muchachos.